Hi, 8th grade historians. In this video, we will be doing a first read of Document B, A Mexican Viewpoint on the War, to try to understand what it's all about. It's a good idea always to start with looking at the text features before we start reading. So what do you notice about the way this document looks? I notice that this document gives us the source at the top again, but I don't see any background context information like in the other document. I see these dots right here, which are called ellipses. You don't really have to know the name for it. You just need to know that when you see these, it means that this text was taken from a larger piece of text. They aren't giving us the whole thing, just part of it. So when you see these dots, it means that the original source has a lot more words written in there, and the dots just stand for the words that were taken out. We see just part of it right now. I actually see it a couple times throughout this document. Just like in the last document, I see a bunch of footnotes. So I know to look at the bottom of the page when I see a tiny number so I can get definitions of tricky words. I also notice that there are 2 bullet points. This leads me to believe that there will be 2 main points brought up in this document that I should try to pay attention to. The next step is we're going to source the document using our sourcing table. So follow along as I read the source at the top, and then we'll fill out the table. Source: Jesús Velasco Márquez, Instituto Tecnológico Autónomo de México, A Mexican Viewpoint on the War with the United States. Voices of Mexico, issue number 41, 2006. Now let's look at the sourcing table. The first question asks what type of document this is. I can find that information in the title and in the source. This is the Mexican Viewpoint on the War. So I'll be looking for how Mexicans viewed the events of the war. Question 2 asks who created it. There's a name right in the sourcing that tells who created this document: Jesús Velasco Márquez. Question 3 asks where this document was created. If you speak Spanish, this might be easier for you. But if you don't speak Spanish, you can maybe rely on cognates to help you. It says right here that this was at the Instituto de Tecnológico Autónomo. Instituto is very similar to the English word institute, which I know we use for universities and colleges. Tecnológico sounds like the English word for technological, and autónomo sounds like the word autonomous in English. This is most likely a university, and I'm going to write down the full name: Instituto de Tecnológico Autónomo. Don't make fun of my Spanish, please. For question 4, it explicitly tells us the year, 2006. Oh, and I'm noticing here too that it says issue number 41. Usually documents that come in issues are magazines, and I see, I guess the title of it, Voices of Mexico, issue number 41. So I'm going to add that information at the top under what kind of document this is. For question 5, it asks, who was this written for? There isn't anything super specific about who it was written for. So we need to infer based on what we know about who, what, where, and when it was written. So this was written at a university with a name in Spanish in 2006. It's way more recent than the last document. So who do you think this was written for? I'm going to write that it was most likely written for academics, which means people in universities who study history. There isn't a right or wrong answer for this one. You're making a logical guess based on the information you know from the sourcing. And we finished sourcing this document. Thinking about the perspective and context for each document will always help you better understand secondary sources like this one. Knowing that this document was written in 2006 in Mexico will help you understand how the perspective might be different from document A, which was written by an American president in 1846. As we read the whole document, think about the sourcing and the big question, was the U.S. justified in going to war with Mexico? Does this document support the claim that the U.S. was justified in going to war? Or does it support the claim that the U.S. was not justified in going to war with Mexico? Okay, starting at the top. Document B, A Mexican Viewpoint on the War. Source, Jesus Velasco Marquez, Instituto Tecnológico Autónomo de México, A Mexican Viewpoint on the War with the United States. Voices of Mexico, issue number 41, 2006. The most dramatic event in the history of relations between Mexico and the United States took place a century and a half ago. U.S. historians refer to the event as the Mexican War, while in Mexico, we prefer to use the term the U.S. invasion. I see a footnote there, meaning invasion is an unwelcome and forced entry into an area. From the Mexican perspective, there were two facets, and facets means one side of something with many sides. There are two facets to the problem of Texas. One was related to its separation from Mexico, and the other to its annexation. And remember, annexation means the process of becoming an official state. So I'm going to read that starting from the start. One was related to its separation from Mexico, and the other to its annexation to the United States. From Mexico's point of view, the annexation of Texas to the United States was unacceptable for both legal and security reasons. Thus, when the Mexican government learned of the treaty, and a treaty is a formal agreement or contract, when the Mexican government learned of the treaty signed between Texas and the United States in April 1844, it considered such an act a declaration of war. The second was that the troops commanded by General Zachary Taylor arrived at the Rio Grande across from the city of Matamoros, thus occupying the territory in dispute. Dispute means being argued or fought over. So occupying the territory in dispute and increasing the possibilities of a confrontation. In the eyes of the Mexican government, the mobilization, and mobilization means preparing and organizing troops for war or battle. In the eyes of the Mexican government, the mobilization of the U.S. Army was an outright attack on Mexico, an order which led to the battles of Palo Alto and Resaca de la Palma. The American government acted like a bandit who came upon a traveler.